The next video in our router series is we're going to build a shop-made router table. And just like a cabinet table saw, a cabinet router table is going to cut noise by 80%. It also increases dust collection efficiency. We've tested this thing a couple times and I have not seen a speck of dust that didn't get picked up by the dust collection. It has T-track for the Katz-Moses stop block and adjustable sacrificial fence depending on the width of the bit you're using. The fence itself adjusts back and forth. It's on a JESM router lift and has plenty of storage underneath. Now, I'm building this with all the bells and whistles. There's lots of ways to do this cheaper, but I want to show you all the things you can do. That way you can decide what you need in yours. Let's get started by gluing up some 3/4 inch BALTIC birch for the top and the fence and making our cabinet. All right, cabinet is done and we are ready to start working on our top and our fence, which are glued up. If you're wondering about these, this is actually a really cool design by a guy named Jason at Fireball Tools. He does mostly welding and metalworking, but really cool. I'll link them down below. You should go check them out. This thing works awesome. Okay, now that we have our cabinet done, it's time to start working on our top. And I really want to do our top before we finish our cabinet completely. That way it's easy to get in there and put in the dust collection and everything like that. I've cut this template out on the laser and it's a 2-part template. So basically I'm gonna trace this inside, cut it most of the way out with a jigsaw, flush trim, then remove this one and flush trim the depth of the router lift, which is about 3/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch. Okay, this is exciting. We've got everything dialed in here. We've got the T-track for our fence, and if we ever need to put any hold down clamps. Now, when it comes to T-track, I always prefer to epoxy it. I'm gonna use some Total Boat high performance epoxy. If I have any issues with it coming out later, when I tighten my fence down, I'll screw it down. But to me, screws just get in the way, and the bottom of T-track is so thin that it's really hard to countersink a screw and have it be effectively holding it down. So we're gonna try some epoxy. If that doesn't work, we can screw it down later. So let's get to putting in this T-track. Okay, now that we've got this in, and one thing I forgot to mention is when you put in your router lift, you want it to be recessed just a little bit. All router lifts come with leveling pins. And so as long as the router lift is just slightly below your surface, you can use the leveling pins to get it perfectly flush. It's time to move on to our fence here. We're gonna make a 90-degree fence that slides in this T-track. It's gonna have dust collection port, so we're gonna put this in, and it's gonna have T-track for a Katz-Moses stop block available in my store. And we're gonna put a couple threaded inserts and some MDF that can be replaceable on the front of the fence. A lot of times your fence will get chewed up on a router table, so we want to be able to replace that as we go along. So let's get to putting this together, and then our top will be pretty much done. We'll need to do some dust collection underneath for the router lift. We're going to build a box around it and have a port in it, and then we'll get to finishing our cabinet. Okay, we are on the final stretch. We have dust collection done. You saw that box I put under here. I put the port at the very bottom of the box. That way it will get anything that falls in there and not create like a cyclone effect, which we could totally do, where if it was mounted on the back, you, just like a cyclone on a dust collector, all the heavy chips would fall to the bottom and it would only collect the fine dust, and then eventually it would build up and we'd have to take the router lift out and clean underneath there. That's completely sealed because this is very easy to remove, so if we need to get down in there, that's a no-brainer. We're gonna put a switch on the side here. I've 3D printed a tool holder that's gonna hold the most used tools on the side, and then we're gonna go ahead and put a shelf. Originally, I'd wanted to put a drawer on either side of the box, but that's just so narrow there that it would kind of be a pointless waste of space, because by the time you get plywood in there, you end up having a 3-inch wide drawer and it really just wouldn't be very useful. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a shelf in there. We're gonna keep the most used tools on the outside of the machine so they're easy to get to, and then we'll keep some of the obscure stuff underneath. I'm gonna put a heavy roundover on the back here, kind of between the two T-tracks, so that when the fence moves back and forth, the hose doesn't get caught on it, and then throw a cabinet door on it. And of course, some casters as well. So let's get started. I think first we're going to engrave my logo and Bits and Bits logo into the fence here. Like I've always said, they're a big supporter of the channel. So let's do some engraving and get this thing wrapped up. So we are about to drill the hole for the dust collection in the back of the cabinet, and I realized I don't have a big enough hole saw. I thought I did. This is a 2.5-inch hole saw, and we need probably 2 3/4 would be tight, but 3 inches will give us plenty of clearance. So here's a little trick that I learned. I think David Picciuto taught this to me. But you drill, I have a 2.5-inch hole. We're gonna cut that. And then I have a 1/2-inch rabbiting bit. So that's gonna create another 1/2-inch circle, being 3 inches, but it's not gonna be all the way through. Then we're gonna use a flush trim bit to trim around that rabbet, and that's gonna give us a perfect 3-inch hole. So let's get this thing cut. Wow, this thing came out just unbelievable. And the thing that I noticed most is the difference in sound and dust collection from the router lift that was in the wing of my table saw. In fact, let me show you the difference. The other thing I want to show you is the dust collection. That's absolutely incredible, and that is a 1/2-inch roundover bit that we're taking a whole pass at the same time. This thing's absolutely incredible. I love the fence because, you know, a lot of times you're using bigger and smaller bits, and you want to be able to open and close that so that you can line your bit up perfectly with the fence. That dust collection is incredible. The only thing I'm really regretting is the door. I think I thought that it was too heavy, so I added a third hinge. And then I realized I probably installed that top hinge too low, and that's because of that jig I was using. I just went off of that top stretcher, and so it's just too low to support the full weight. That's on me. I'm gonna have to come back and fix that, but that's easy. But I didn't want a bunch of holes in there for the video. So all in all, this came out incredible. Go watch the other videos in the series about routers. There's a playlist down below. Thank you to Bits and Bits. Best way to support the channel. Head on over to the Katz-Moses store, get a stop block, a dovetail jig, or a t-shirt. Guys, thanks for watching. Stay safe in the shop and have a wonderful day.